Before we begin, the title is written in the right-hand corner of the screen. Enjoy watching. The story begins with Lisa taking back the jewelry she came to the event for. She did it unexpectedly, because she would never have gotten it back otherwise. At this point, the girl from whom Lisa took the jewelry starts to get nervous and asks what right she has to tear up and not ask permission. Everyone says Lisa has lost her mind, but really she's the only one doing the right thing right now. The fact is, it's partly her thing and it's all quite fair. To make sure everyone understood her correctly, the girl explained that this jewelry was a family heirloom. She had come to take it back and was not going to give it back to anyone. Since everyone had forgotten, she decided to remind them that some time ago, when there was nothing she could do, she had been tricked into secretly taking the jewelry. So since they had allowed themselves to do that, she had the right to get hers back and take revenge on each and every one of them. But for now, she's not going to take revenge on anyone, or the only thing she cares about is bringing back the family religion and restoring the justice that never existed. She's decided she's going to leave here with just the jewelry, and no one can stop her from doing so. The girl with pink hair began to get very nervous, because she realizes that everything is fair and it's really not her stuff, but at the same time she cannot part with it. She wears it always, even without an occasion. Lisa warned that if anyone tries to stop her or change her mind, that person will regret it immediately. Everyone knows she's right, but obviously someone will try to stop her. It's amazing that so far, no one is even approaching her. Apparently she was so convincing that even the guards are standing still and pretending not to notice. At some point, some guy approaches Lisa. He politely approached her and asked her what's going on here. Does he really want to take a chance and try to intervene in this situation? Lisa looked at him and made it clear that she could figure it out without him and knew what belonged to whom. It turned out that he was one of her assistants, and in fact, he just wanted to make sure everything was okay and she wasn't in any danger. The girl who resented the situation smiled and made it clear that she would still get hers back. She turned to the assistant and asked that he tell his mistress to apologize and promise never to come to this estate again. The guy ignored her and started asking Lisa what he could do for her. Mistress replied that everything was fine, and if anything happened, she would call him for help. That girl started to get nervous, because she was just ignored, as if she was not here at all. Lisa started talking to her assistant, and it turns out that he was used to solving such situations very cruelly. He suggested that if she was attacked, he would destroy everyone in his way. The girl laughed and said that for now, it was not necessary. She's doing well as it is, and of course she's very grateful for his support anyway. It makes her feel so much better knowing that he's there for her, and will be able to do whatever it takes to make sure they leave with what they came for. That girl got hate. She even started calling Lisa a witch and told her that she had been called that for a long time. The lady didn't pay attention to it and pretended she didn't care. Still, lest people forget who she is, the girl reminded that she is a duchess and has always been in favor of justice, especially when it comes to her personally. As suddenly, some guy appears, all at once paid attention to him and began to watch what will happen next. He confidently came to the center of the hall and asked what is going on here, because these conversations can be heard even in the street. As usual, he made all the girls around worry and swoon. Everyone is crazy about him. There's not a single one who wouldn't want to marry him or at least dream about it. The gentleman approached Lisa. She was very happy to see him and told him that she had managed to get her thing back. It wasn't easy, but still, she had it in her hands. Instead of getting excited and asking how she did it, he had absolutely no reaction, as if this happened every day and there was nothing interesting about it. The girl looked at him with a sad look and made it clear that she was expecting a completely different reaction. The guy saw this and realized that he had reacted too neutrally. So he immediately smiled and said he was very happy. Of course, he didn't ask for details. For him, the main thing was to stop seeing her sad face and say some nice words. At that moment, there was some commotion in the hall. Everyone was very surprised to see him smile. Judging by the conversations, no one had seen such a thing for several years already. But that's not all. As it turns out, he didn't just walk up to Lisa and she didn't just let herself talk to him. The thing is, they're husband and wife. No one could ever think that these two would ever be together or have anything in common. The gentleman heard the unpleasant words towards his wife and decided that something had to be done about it. He turned around and looked towards the men and hinted that this was their serious and probably last mistake. Everyone immediately freaked out, stopped talking, got quiet, and waited for his reaction. Usually when he gets angry, something bad happens. The gentleman said very loudly that if he heard one more time that someone would insult his wife or laugh at her, it would be the last laugh and words of the one who would do it. After that, he looked at his wife and said they had to go. Lisa fell in love with this man again. Because every time he protects her, she feels like the happiest girl in the world. She is really very lucky to have such a husband. Everyone is afraid of him, and even when she herself shows up at an event, that's the only reason why no one comes up to her and tries to hurt her. Especially if he is around, she feels under reliable protection and does not worry that at some point someone can do or say something. In such moments, the girl relaxes and fully trusts him. And yet there is one flaw in him. He is at work too often and is rarely home when he returns. It is a huge holiday for her, but more often than not, he wants to rest and not leave his room anywhere for as long as he can. In fact, she misses him so much that even a few minutes together is a huge reason for happiness. And you can read that in those moments, the day is a success. When he can be there for her, he always takes her hand and won't let go, even when he has no strength and he just keeps quiet. His wife knows he still loves her very much, but sometimes he really needs to rest after hard work. Liza is ready to endure all these difficulties because she knows that sooner or later, the work will not be so much, and they will be able to live happily and be together all the time, as she always dreamed. Meanwhile, the girl who is outraged still can't take her eyes off them. She's really pissed off, and she probably wants the jewelry back. She had gotten so used to it that she could no longer accept the fact and remember that it didn't belong to her. She started herding after them and asking them to stop and wait for her. Lisa turned around and looked at her and smiled slightly. She made it clear that since she already had the jewelry, she wouldn't even dream of trying to get it back. Then, the girl turned around and started to follow her husband. She was tired of explaining that she had come to get hers back and only she was right. If no one wanted to accept it, then let it not be her problem. Family heirlooms and magic stones were stolen. The girl long could not decide when she should return everything. And now this process has begun. She will definitely return everything. Every last stone, and save her father. Suddenly she had a dream where she felt very bad, and that girl was laughing at her, as if she had given back what she had taken away long ago, including jewelry. She felt very bad and realized she had been betrayed. Lisa asked for help, but no one reacted. She believed them, and now, waking up in the middle of the night, Lisa felt kind of strange. Just now she had seen her betrayed, and now everything was fine. She doesn't understand what's going on. But from the looks of it, all those horrible images, it wasn't a dream. It was a reality in which she died. It's very interesting what happened over the years and why she has a sense of betrayal from people she trusted. She realizes that now she is alive and some miracle has happened. Everything is too strange because just a moment ago, she clearly saw her enemy in front of her and realized that her life has come to an end. Lisa thought that even though it seemed unreal, she had probably gone back in time and had a chance to make things right. She didn't notice how suddenly the assistant came into the room and started to wake her up. The girl is so confused that she doesn't realize where reality is anymore. The girl asked why he ran into her room, and it turns out the deputy just heard a scream, so he had to enter the room without permission. He thought she needed to be rescued. Max asked if everything was all right, to which the girl replied that everything was fine. She asked him to hand her glasses to her, and realized that she couldn't sleep. She was too scared and had so many questions that she wouldn't be able to sleep well for the next few days. The girl put on her glasses and tried to calm down. Strangely, she didn't even notice that she was screaming very loudly. It was as if she had fallen asleep and woke up quietly on this bed. Even if she did go back in time, you need to understand what year it is, what is going on around you, and what the circumstances are, and the relationships with those around you. Since she has no other choice, she asked the assistant directly what year it was. He tried to pretend that he was not surprised, and said that it was the year 935. which meant that Lisa had teleported back a year. When she fell asleep, it was the year 936. So she's back to the time when her father was arrested, when the family was almost destroyed. Actually, her going back in time is not bad and very good, but it would have been much better if Lisa had gone back a few months, or even years earlier. She would have had more time to think things through and do the most right thing possible. In any case, everything can still be fixed. The main thing is to create a good plan and clearly understand what she wants to fix and how long it will take. Now it is very important to calculate everything down to the last detail, especially time. It is not an easy task, but life has never been carefree. The girl is used to work and realizes that she is capable of it. It remains only not to give up and to the end believe in his victory. But there's another very important point. She's going to have to do everything she can to make sure no one has any suspicion that she knows more than anyone else. Suddenly, Lisa didn't think at all about who she could trust to tell and who she couldn't. She thought the assistant should know and asked her to listen. She warned him that he probably wouldn't believe a word of it, but she really wanted to share it with him. The aide was very surprised, but now he has no idea. Come to find out, it will be interesting to see his reaction, though most likely he just won't believe it. The girl said that she was deceived and brutally destroyed. She began to look out the window so that he would not see her tears. Lisa tried to be as sincere as possible to convey what she felt at that moment and what she was going through. Eventually, he listened to her, but now he has this look on his face as if he is having great difficulty trying to believe these words. The mistress understands everything perfectly, so she said that of course he had the right to doubt, but that she had just confessed to him what had really happened to her. That it was very important for her to get support and understanding, that she could count on his help in a difficult situation. Because she trusts him more than anyone else, everything that happened to her in her past life must never happen again, and she's determined to do everything she can to prevent it. She's Lisa Charty. Her family is well versed in ancient magic, and her father even once worked at a university. Therefore, the girl also continued to study everything that her father had not yet managed. She spent a great deal of time in his private study, asking for his books and trying to find out what would probably become a real sensation. People always at home, that it was a waste of time and she would never succeed. She spent so much time in the study that not even her father was there that long. She's nicknamed the witch with red hair, who tries to become an investigator and doesn't know it's useless. People have tried to restore her more than once, because they're afraid she'll succeed at anything. At that time, she had a fiancé who constantly defended her, supported her, and told her not to pay attention to all those jealous people, because they are just waiting for her to give up and nothing will work out. He always believed that she was doing it for a reason. Because if a person was so actively trying to understand a topic and trying to research something, it was very likely that they had the sense and the belief that they had to follow through. He would not let anyone into her office or allow anyone to enter even when she wasn't there. He was a real security guard and a man who kept ill-wishers away from her. He reminded her of what could be and how she would feel if she made a real discovery and brought the investigation to a conclusion. Lisa was getting tremendous motivation and promised that he and her father would be the only ones she would celebrate the completion of the investigation with. The girl's father no less admired her fortitude and self-confidence. He told everyone that his daughter, a genius, he was proud of her and did not allow anyone to offend her, even as a joke. Count Paust was the man everyone admired. He was like the sun. The girl always wanted to be like him and did it no matter what. At some point, Lisa unexpectedly learns that her father has been using things for dark magic. She can't believe it's possible, because he, more than anyone else, knows how dangerous it is. She immediately started defending him, but judging by everything that was going on, it was still unclear why he was being punished and what his mistake was. Turns out it was strictly forbidden by state rules, so since he broke the rules, he has to be arrested for a very long time. The girl is experiencing this situation for the second time, but the emotions are so strong, as if for the first time, she wants to save her father, but at the same time, she can do nothing. She should get over it. After all, As an adult, he's perfectly fine with what could be in store for that and broke the rules anyway. At that moment, the man thought that his daughter was still young and did not understand anything. He deceived her and told her that he would be back soon. But in fact, she understood everything and realized that it was the last time she heard his voice and saw him in front of her. Of course, he was doing it so she wouldn't be afraid or worried about anything. But Lisa was much smarter and more mature than he used to think she was. In the end, the girl's father never came back. They said he wanted to destroy the country with dark magic. So he was arrested for the rest of his life, and it became clear what he needed black magic for. It became clear to everyone why he had taken so long to understand the subject and try to learn the magical elements. Since his daughter didn't know about it, she thought he was as cruel as it turned out to be. Everyone has left. Lisa is left alone. She can't believe that her father really wanted to do something bad, and it wasn't a mistake. She can't understand whether she feels sorry for him, or on the contrary, she thinks he deserves such punishment. It turns out that after everyone found out the truth, the entire staff left the estate. They didn't want to stay here and work with his relatives. Also did the most important assistant. He changed in front of the girl and explained that his father wanted to betray not only the country, but also everyone who trusted him. Lisa sat in the dark, cold corridor for a very long time trying to figure out what to do next. She felt too lonely and even thought about stopping to investigate further, as suddenly, her lover suddenly approached her. Unlike the others, he did not leave and stayed here. The guy wanted to support Lisa, although he realizes that she does not want to see or hear anyone right now. The girl looked at him, happy at first, but then scared that he might leave her too. She thought it was more likely that he had only come to say goodbye, not to be supportive like he usually was. She ran up to him, because at this point, this guy is the natural one she has left. Even her father has been taken away. All the staff has been turned away except him. She doesn't even know who to talk to and discuss all that she's had to deal with. She looked into his eyes and tried to find some of the love that she thought wasn't there anymore, and never would be, really wondering if she was wrong or not. Besides the fact that he came to support her, the guy told her that something terrible is going to happen to his father. He's heard how they want to punish him, and most likely, after something like that, no man can stand it. He doesn't want to upset Lisa, but at the same time he's sure that he should have told her about it. She's his daughter, who needs to know the truth, even if it's not very pleasant and could ruin her entire future life and the hope that she'll ever see her father again. She tearfully remembers his smile, the warm and pleasant words he always said. He was the first man in her life who treated her well no matter what. After all that she had heard, there was a feeling that there was no point in living any longer. She didn't know where she would go, who she would go to, or what she would do tomorrow. She doesn't know how to stop herself from crying, because so far, in front of her eyes, is a picture of her father's face, and it's the most horrible thing she has seen in her life. She never thought that even the second time to feel these emotions will be as horrible as the first one. At one point, a guy gets close to her and asks her if she wanted to use the power of a diamond that can create a return in time. Lisa didn't immediately realize what he meant, but he seemed to have already piqued her interest and created some hope of getting her father back and preventing what was happening now. The fact that their family owned 6 stones with special power, when confiscating the property, 5 stones were taken away from the family forever. The only thing she was able to hide was a time-travel diamond. He offered to use it, for then, if it worked, she could save her father and prevent his death. Meanwhile, it was raining heavily outside. They were alone in the manor, which was even better. They wouldn't have to hide and try to do everything as fast as possible without anyone noticing. On the way, the guy told her that something is hidden in Lisa's grandfather's lab. She remembers the place very well, but she never thought that the diamond is located here. No one had obviously been here for a long time, though even the girl didn't think she'd come in here with any such intention. There are so many things here that it's hard to figure out where a diamond could be hidden. And besides, if it's hidden, it's probably in a place where no one would look for it. Maybe this place will be in plain sight and no one will think that the diamond is there. Lisa immediately noticed some light-colored jar, and if you stick to this strategy, the diamond could be there. Suddenly, as soon as the girl took the box and realized that the stones were definitely in it, the guy came up to her from the back, praised her, and literally after a second, destroyed her. He only needed one thing, to find out where the diamonds were, and now he didn't need her anymore. Lisa realized why he'd been there for her all this time. She felt so uncomfortable and disgusted that she trusted him more than she trusted herself that it was simply impossible to describe in words. She doesn't understand how he could do this to her, and if some ring with superpowers is more important to him than she is. The girl fell to the floor and stopped feeling absolutely everything. She had an immense hatred for this man and a desire to do to him what he had done to her. At the very last moment, he confessed that he was tired of wearing the mask of a gentleman and pretending that he really wanted to make all the problems in her life disappear. In fact, with her help, he just wanted to get his own way and get the ring, or rather, to find out where it was located. Lisa was very wrong to think that he could be trusted when she stood in front and pulled out the gem. She couldn't even think that right now, right behind her back, was the main enemy. She felt very disgusted remembering all those beautiful moments she had spent with him. She had always wondered what flaw there could be in him, and now, she found out the truth he had carefully hidden for years. With her last strength, she asks one last question. What had she done for him that was so terrible that he got rid of her so easily and immediately began to smile as if he had accomplished the most important mission of his life? Since he has nothing to hide anymore, the guy immediately said that he got close to her just to get what he wanted, and he got it much faster than he could have imagined. And then he asked if she seriously thought the witch with the red hair was going to be his wife. Then he started laughing really hard and loud, waiting for her to die on the spot. The girl with the pink hair comes into the room. She doesn't know he got the stone yet, so she keeps pretending that he's a stranger to her and she doesn't understand what's going on. Then, as soon as the guy told her that he had succeeded and they could no longer hide, the girl got excited and started smiling just as he did. Lisa looks at them and can't believe that all this time they had such a terrible plan, and she didn't notice anything. It disgusts her to look at these lovers, because just a few minutes ago, she loved this man more than anyone else in the world, and sometimes even stronger than her own father. If she could only rise to her feet now and take revenge on these people, she would do it without even thinking about it. At that moment, Lisa thought that she still had the last few minutes. She should seize the opportunity and do something to make them afraid. She managed to get that sharp object and point it right at him. The guy was so scared that he accidentally dropped the ring he'd been wanting to get for so long. He had a huge scratch on his face, which made him scream loudly and almost cry, although just now Lisa was hurt much more seriously and more severely than he was, and yet did not make a single sound. At the very last moment, she managed to take the ring without either of them noticing. She tricked them at the last minute, and said the following words: that she wants to go back in time and begs to be given this opportunity. She already knows who she will take revenge on, and who will regret her action in the first place. It was a story of what happened to her in her past life. The assistant listened to all this and couldn't believe his ears. He imagines that if this is true, how hard it was for her, and how she now wants to take revenge on that person. The man immediately began to think of different options, but not one of them she did not like. She wants to think of something more interesting and make him suffer long and painful. They started to discuss the best idea together, but so far they couldn't come up with anything special. Lisa got her head in her hands and realized that she had too much to do. It seemed like a year was too much, but in fact, it was very little. It turns out that the moment she took the real ring, she made sure they had the fake, and she had the original, so no one noticed. In any case, she realized one thing. She didn't want to fall in love with anyone else. And even if she did, that person would have to go through a lot of tests before she could trust him even a little bit, much less tell him things that no one should know. It turns out that she has only one task left, or rather a mission. She has to save her father by any means and make sure that no one finds out about the laboratory where the diamonds are kept. At some point, the girl remembered that she had too little time, so she hurried the assistant and asked her to accompany her somewhere. She intends to take every last thing from someone, so that there is nothing left. Meanwhile, a gentleman has arrived at the manor. and is greeted by all the staff, for he usually works away from home and is seldom seen here. They started congratulating him on his return, although the plan was for him to return a little later, everyone wondering what happened and if something bad had happened that changed his plans. At one point, the Duke became resentful and asked to be called not just Lord, but Master of the estate. The butler asked why the guy came back so early. After all, everyone was sure he would stay where he was for another year. The Duke was developing some magical tools, and it usually takes a very long time to do so. He had a terrible dream, so he couldn't think about work anymore. As it turned out, it was about Lisa. He saw her suffering and asking for help. Maybe it's a coincidence, but in any case, he plans to help her and find out what threatens her. According to him, it was very much like some kind of prophetic dream with predictions. So the first thing he asked was if there had been any problems while he was away. The butler said that some people now considered them enemies, to which the guy replied that it meant only one thing. His threats had worked, and in general, they should be grateful that he had let them live. Then, he started asking about some reports. Meanwhile, while in the carriage with the assistant, they began to discuss and recall how Lisa had first met her lover. Once long ago, she was sitting and thinking about something in a new place for herself, and at some point a strange guy came up to her. He had heard of her before, so he decided to meet her and get to know her better. At that time, he was the kindest and sweetest guy she had ever known. The girl saw his smile and immediately realized that she wanted to communicate with him and also get to know him better. But if she had only known what a mistake it was, and that the best thing she could have done at that point was to back out and say that she didn't want to meet anyone, she would have done just that and not even listened to him. She liked him so much that she could listen to his stories for ages. She didn't even want to go home, and especially not to say goodbye to this beautiful guy. She was literally enchanted by him, and each time she began to dream more and more of a relationship. Of course, he was constantly complimenting her and pretending that he couldn't stop admiring her beauty. He was constantly touching her hair, staring intently into her eyes and saying what she wanted to hear. It seemed to her that at that moment, the world became much brighter. She did not even think about why he suddenly, at the first meeting, behaved so confidently, as if he had studied and rehearsed every word in advance. Meanwhile, Lisa almost got sick. She doesn't understand how she didn't see elementary things and at the first meeting believed a stranger without finding out who he is and what his intentions are. It would be interesting for her to look at herself from the outside when she sees him after a while, for it will probably be difficult for her to pretend that she knows nothing and has not seen what will happen in the future, or rather, what he will do to her, and for what sake. Meanwhile, they arrived at the aide's sister's house, and for some reason they didn't warn her about it. The girl was very surprised and frightened, because she wasn't prepared and hadn't prepared any treats. She felt very embarrassed and ashamed, so Lisa immediately explained that it was not her fault and that she had just come to get acquainted, not to eat or drink tea. It turns out that next to this girl's house, there is her own store. She decided to make a little tour, because there is nothing to do at home anyway. Lisa immediately held the conversation and said she had no idea how hard it is to run this store now. She praised it and said that someday there will definitely be huge lines of customers here. Because there are so many things here, such as flavorful and fresh-baked goods, many people just don't know about this store, so it takes some more time to develop. She started talking about how they were saved by the Charty family before they were literally sleeping in a dump and now allowed to open a business. With these words, she made her brother remember that most terrible period in their lives. He even wept a little and said that if he ever had the opportunity, he would definitely thank them back. After that, they started to talk about how each other was doing, what news they had, and in general how they were living. And as soon as they had discussed everything, Lisa joined the conversation. She wondered if Morosa was planning to go out tonight, meaning that she wanted to either suggest that we spend this evening together somehow, or to find out when she would be out of the house or this store. The girl replied that she actually had some plans. She had to go to a regular customer to give him a lot of sweets he had ordered a few days ago. As suddenly, Liza offers to do it instead of her. The girl doesn't quite understand why she needs it. She doesn't even have any options. Why a stranger might suddenly want to do something instead of her. Besides, they've known each other for just a few minutes. In fact, Lisa only wants to accomplish one thing. Just so this girl doesn't meet the man she planned to see today. She's determined that he'll get his goodies, but not from Morosa. In the meantime, it was evening. Some suspicious people appeared outside the store and started discussing very quietly why don't they just attack the owner of the pastry store. They think it's a very easy case, and they're very lucky. Didn't think there was a Morosa walking home in those blue clothes, and began to think at what moment it would be best for them to run up and attack the... Without thinking long, they came very close, stood right in front of her, and even allowed themselves to touch her shoulder, so that she was startled and definitely stopped. They're quite sure of themselves, and judging by their plan, some of her things they will be able to take without any. One of them suggested that she herself would be willing to give it all away, just to be left alone. The girl immediately asked for him to take his hands away, and in response, he asked her to shut up, and hinted that she couldn't talk to them in such a rude and disrespectful manner. The girl couldn't stand it and showed her real face. It turns out that she had made a deal with the owner of the pastry shop and went out on the street instead of her. Also that no one would hurt her. She suddenly hit one of them who was holding her hand, and judging by their reaction, they were very much afraid, because they thought they had caught Morosa. Grandpa kicked them and punished them for wanting to attack a harmless girl who was just coming home from work and hadn't done anything to hurt anyone else. After that, her assistant joined them. He came up just in time and additionally hit each of them. He did a good job. He even managed to make sure that Mistress was all right. Lisa thanked him and praised him for protecting her well and reacting quickly when she was in danger, which proved his professionalism. In the end, they smiled and hugged each other, for the cunning plan had succeeded. Everything had gone even better than they had planned. No one had been hurt, of course, except those hooligans. At some point, one of them woke up and tried to get back at them again. Did he really have so much courage that he actually thought he would succeed the second time around? And he probably did it very wrong. Just in a second, the guy will regret it and will have to apologize, because the first time they were just defending themselves, and now they will probably punish these bullies for bad behavior. As soon as the deputy had disarmed his opponent, he asked him the most important question he had somehow forgotten to ask earlier, namely, who had hired them. He promised that if no one said anything, he would break the arm of one of them. In response, the bully laughed and wished him good luck. He doesn't believe that he is capable of such a thing and will be able to do it. Although if it were him, it would be strange to laugh in such a situation. The guy looked at the villain and made it clear that it wasn't a joke. Since he wasn't used to repeating himself multiple times, he wouldn't advise smiling at him and thinking someone would joke with him. Meanwhile, the next day came. They returned to their sister's store and began to say goodbye to her. Lisa said it was a pleasure to meet her, and in return, Morosa said the same thing. In fact, the girl was a little upset, because she wanted to talk to them more, but unfortunately, she only has to wish them all the best, and of course, have a good trip. Lastly, the girl remembered Lisa's father and said that she thought he would soon be free, and most likely he was not at fault at all. The girl thanked for these beautiful words and said that she completely agreed. Morosa said that if she could help her in any way, Lisa could always reach out and know that the girl would never refuse her. All she had to do was get the request, and then she would do whatever she could just to help her out. It's actually very comforting for Lisa to know that even after losing her father, she can trust at least two people where just now they themselves have said that they will always be on her side. It gives her even more confidence that she can do it. And even if it's too hard, there are those who will gladly make the mission easier for her. In the meantime, it was time to leave. They packed up all their things, went outside and realized that they would not be coming back soon. There were still a lot of those ahead of them, and there was no telling how long it would take. Lisa hasn't come up with a plan yet. She's afraid to do anything unnecessary, lest she make a mistake and regret not thinking of it when she had the time. She's walking along now, and doesn't even realize that right next to her is a man who is already dreaming and planning to get rid of her. But luckily, he was spotted by an assistant. He did not remain silent, and at once drew his mistress's attention to him, for it was not known what he was up to, or why he suddenly appeared exactly where they were. As suddenly, The girl herself saw him in the crowd of people and did not understand what he was doing here, because according to the plan he was supposed to be very far away, but certainly not here. The prince immediately walked up to them and said that this was a very unexpected meeting, though he had most likely been watching them all along, and there was nothing unexpected about it, at least for him for sure, since Lisa already realizes what kind of person he really is. She did not smile and fall for these tricks. The girl shows that she is not in the mood to talk to him, and even less happy about this meeting. It turns out he was the one who hired the people who wanted to hurt Morosa. It's a good thing she remembered the situation and knew when and where it would happen. She was able to save the girl, and now she has a huge hatred for him. The man allows himself too much and thinks that he is allowed to get rid of those who hinder the realization of a sinister plan so easily. Besides, it is possible that after he failed to harm Morosa, he came up with something new, and nobody knows what it is. The girl's assistant is pretty sure he's up to something again, so he's totally focused because he knows what to expect. Anyway, the girl very suddenly remembered that she has to play her part. Supposedly very happy to see him, she even has to try to smile. At this point, he also, not sincerely smiling and at the same time, has no idea why they met here, because he didn't plan it. Prince hates Lisa's assistant. He barely tries to live here so he doesn't show his sinister look and smile. The guy also takes it out very well, especially after the story of the mistress. He no longer has any reason to believe this man. At some point, the girl notices that the prince is getting nervous. She asks what's wrong, and in response, he explains that he's just tired after the hard mission his father gave him, and then asks what about her. Lisa didn't hesitate. She immediately replied that she had things to do, so no time at all to have a conversation in the middle of the street and put it off for later. She offered to talk some other time, if of course they met each other again, and someone was in the mood and willing to communicate. She's no longer going to let this guy catch her and do as he pleases. She wants to capture as much information as possible to understand his options and know his next steps in advance. Lisa thought about it and realized that if she could track down the stolen magic stone, she might be able to find the creator. The girl stopped and tried to put herself in his shoes to understand what he would do next, and most importantly, what he had the strength and ability to do. Since his plan was a failure, he definitely has to be thinking of something else, and most likely something to prepare for as early as possible. It turns out they have no guarantee that he won't retarget Morosa, or count her out, that she needs to be protected and always be around if possible. Which means they need someone to help them. They can't be there for themselves, so they need to find someone, and they need to do it as soon as possible. As she cannot rely on her relatives, they are hyenas who want to steal the family's property in any chance they get. They will immediately do it. At some point, she certainly had one idea, but so far it seems a little dangerous and questionable to her. The deputy asked to be told everything, because he doesn't have any more ideas than that. Lisa remembered Duke Dorasneus and thought she could ask him for help. The aide heard the name and began to doubt he would help them at all, as the man probably had enough problems of his own. It turns out they do the same magical research, so according to the girl, her father was friends with the previous head of the family. This greatly increases the chances that they will be able to help, or at least try to do something. That's all very well. But according to the aide, the head of the estate has now changed, and they can't know for sure if he'll want to help or not. The girl realizes he's absolutely right. But for now, they don't have any other options, so they have to grab onto any. If they get even the slightest lead, she wants to take advantage of it. The one she needs, they call him the Iceman. A lot of people know about him, but even more people fear him. Hanel Dorazny, the current head at this age, has become the best researcher of ancient magic. No one has ever doubted his ability to recognize things that many have never even considered. In ancient times, there were so-called wizards who could perform miracles. But unfortunately, to this day, there are none of them left. So nowadays, everyone who is into this subject is looking for the magic books and tools they left behind. If a person can officially claim to be a researcher of ancient magic, he becomes a pride in the country and an authority for the rest of his life. Highest degree, first-class researcher Lisa really wanted to become a successful girl researcher, but unfortunately she didn't make it. The head of the Durazny family thinks only of his magic. He is indifferent and cruel to others. He is interested in nothing but his own gain. He has no pity. And as everyone knows, he has a heart of ice. But that's not all. There's one thing that stops Lisa from acting further. This guy hates her. They've done research together a few times where he's always glared at her. The girl is sure he doesn't want women doing magical research, and everyone knows it. That's why they don't even try to start something. Though maybe some women miss out on their talent and never find out about it. The assistant unexpectedly offered to send him a letter, to which the girl replied that she was ready to wag her tail in front of him, just to achieve cooperation and fulfill her mission. She no longer cared what he thought. The main thing was to get his consent and help. As expected of the Duke's family, their estate is the most luxurious she's ever seen in her life. It's all gold. It looks like a fairy tale. Everything is so luxurious that you never want to leave. It's like this place beckons with its energy and makes you fall in love with every corner and every room. Lisa didn't think she would send him a letter, but it turned out to be much easier than she thought. Surprisingly, he even wanted to meet her and offered to do it soon. Of course, the girl agreed and immediately came to visit him. Just in case Lisa didn't forget, the assistant came over to her and reminded her to be careful and to watch his every move. She thanked him and said she had it under control. The door opens, a man walks in, and so far she can only see him in silhouette. It's a very exciting moment. Now it's important to be confident and not to show how important this meeting is for her. He walks in, a very handsome guy who is mesmerizing with just one look. You want to stare at him and admire him forever. He has a really icy stare that makes you want to freeze in one place and not move. It's a nickname that suits him. And it's not just Lisa who's noticed it. It's something he hears almost every day. It's like he hates her already. She's too scared to even say her name, let alone start a conversation. Eventually, she pulled herself together and was able to thank him for agreeing to meet with her. She was quite grateful for it. And of course, because of that, to say even more just to get hers. She offered to get right down to business and not to delay this moment. But for some reason, the guy began to be silent, as if waiting for something else from her. Lisa did not immediately realize what was happening. She began to get nervous, because she did not want to make him angry and spoil the meeting. As suddenly, he started talking about some glasses. The girl did not understand what it meant and asked how to understand it. The guy smiled and explained that Forever showed up wearing her glasses, and this is the first time he sees her without them. He wondered what happened to her glasses, and why she came without them. The girl was very surprised and didn't understand if he was really interested anyway. It meant that he remembered her, and maybe it increased the chances that he would help and not refuse after all. She replied that in fact she wore those glasses just for fun, and there was no special occasion for it, so there was no point in it. She took them with her according to her mood and no more than that. Meanwhile, he motioned for her to take a seat, and the conversation would probably take place right there. From the looks of it, the guy was definitely ready for it already. He began to stall me and immediately said that he was ready to listen to her request. The girl was very surprised, although at first she was scared. But after a minute, she was able to relax and rejoiced. Now that she had the opportunity, Lisa reminded him that she had already mentioned in her letter that she would like to ask for financial and personnel support from his family, if of course they were in a position to help with it. She explained that she doesn't know if he will believe her or not, but her father who was arrested, he is innocent. She is sure someone framed him and doesn't know how to prove it and get justice. She really wants to save him, but she doesn't have the power to do it yet. She needs helpers with more power and opportunity. She realizes it's too embarrassing and unacceptable to ask, but she's running out of options, so he's her last and only hope. At that moment, he looked at her with a look from which it was impossible to tell what he thought of it, or what he could expect in return. As suddenly, the Duke began to reason and explained that her father was not the kind of man who would be unknowingly approaching a case, especially if it involved dark magic. Most likely, as a researcher of ancient magic, he took his experiments seriously and always understood what he could do and what he could be punished for. It made her feel good to know that even though he hated her personally, the Duke had a lot of respect for the girl's father, which made it even more likely that things would work out. And as soon as she thought about it, the guy explained that no matter how well their families had gotten along before, unfortunately, there was no way he could help her that easily. But Lisa was not confused. She replied that that was why she wanted to offer him something interesting that he would probably not be able to refuse. She hinted to the aide that it was his turn. He reached into his jacket and started pulling something out of it, meaning they were prepared for this conversation, and the unpleasant answer didn't stop them. It turns out that they brought one of the magic stones, which should definitely interest the Duke. It seems that after this, no one can refuse, not even the Duke, who cannot be persuaded to anything. He started to look at this diamond and thought for a few minutes. I wonder what he thinks about it. Because as always, you can't tell from his look. It's like he's doing it on purpose so that no one can read his thoughts from his look or reaction. The fact is that the Duke of Durazny has long taken an interest in their family heirlooms. For what she has brought with her is the best object for study. The girl promised that if he cooperated with her, she would provide him with the ring and her grandfather's research materials. And since it was very valuable, he really had no reason to refuse or hesitate. If the rest of the stolen magic stones are returned, she will give them back in return for his consent and help. She has said all she wants to say. Now it remains to hear his answer. Surely he has something to say, but the answer can be either long or short. They started looking at each other, as if her whole life depended on his answer. The girl realizes that she doesn't have anything else to interest this man, so she did the best she could. The guy looked at her again with his cold gaze and made it clear that he couldn't be bribed that easily. He replied that it wasn't enough. According to him, there must be something else that she can offer him. The girl does not know what to say. But for some reason, he began to talk in hints, without specifics and a clear proposal. In the end, the most interesting thing he said not immediately. After a long pause, the Duke asked what about her. Lisa did not immediately understand what he was talking about, and as soon as she began to think, she realized that everything was obvious. The Duke repeated again and said that if she wanted him to help her, she had to marry him. Without that, he refused to do anything, even if it cost him nothing to do it. When suddenly the assistant intervenes. He said his opinion, namely, that it was very rude of him. Supposedly it could have been said more gently. The Duke was indignant and said that he did not authorize any of the aides to interfere in this conversation, for it was a matter between him and Lisa alone. It is very interesting how the girl will react to this, because this she obviously did not expect. It turns out that she almost got the consent. It remains only to become his wife, if of course she is ready to do it. According to him, there's one very important point. The fact is that their parents, who initially had a good friendly relationship, decided to strengthen their bond with a marriage between two close people. Lisa immediately thought of her grandfather and realized that there was too much she didn't know. So now she was forced to do the same thing as her relatives. After that, he started talking about how some promise she had made to her family had been forgotten. So he was implying that he could not trust her, so she would have to convince him that the situation would not happen again. Lisa did not understand how he knew it, for even she did not know it. It was strange that he changed topics very quickly and could not stop at one. Then, he asked another question to which he already knew the answer, namely whether the girl wanted to help her father. He began to manipulate and insinuate that she would have to do too much for him to start helping, or at least not change his mind. Lisa is getting angry, because it's not what she planned. She doesn't like what's going on here. She's not as confident as she was. She has nothing to say now, because the only thing that remains is to agree to marry him, although it is not known what benefit the Pepper will get after their wedding. The girl thought about it, but did not understand what he needs it for. Before finally agreeing, she asked only one question: if he was really ready for a red-haired witch to be his wife. As suddenly, the Duke only wanted to answer something. As his assistant came into the office, he opened the door without permission and said that it was very important. He apologized for his behavior, and then said that the magic tool they were transporting had malfunctioned, and now he was smashing and breaking everything in the garden. No one knows what to do about it. Even the Duke didn't expect something like this. He doesn't know what to do. Stay and talk to Lisa further, or try to solve this problem. He ordered the wounded to leave the danger zone first, and the others to try to hold him off, because if they all ran away, something terrible might happen. Some started to admit afterwards that they lacked strength and stamina. This monster is much bigger on each of them. So, everyone started to be very afraid and scattered around. Since they don't know what he's capable of yet, they need the Lord's help. Otherwise, the monster will just destroy everyone in its path. It's never happened before, so no one knows what to do or if they can even beat it. Duke immediately went outside and began to think of different options, it turns out. This monster is called a magic tool. Before, they completely controlled it. But now, something happened, and it can walk and exist on its own. It turns out it was used as a defense in ancient times. It can only be handled by second-class items and above. Either way, they have to stop him. Otherwise, he'll get to the mansion. All three of them walk up to it, stop, and no one knows what to do next. As suddenly, the Duke asked everyone to stay in their seats, but really, he knows what needs to be done and will try to save everyone. Lisa didn't notice this and decided that maybe she had a chance to do something that would make him agree to her proposal, and she wouldn't have to marry him. She used her power and started doing something about it. There's some unknown energy around her that's starting to scare the monster away and make it move away from everyone else. Eventually, the monster couldn't take it anymore and really started to fall to the ground. His strength starting to fail so much that he can't even lift his own arm anymore. In the end, the monster fell asleep and didn't even have to be destroyed. It would only have to think of something to prevent it from recovering and attacking them again. Everyone immediately smiled and hoped that it wouldn't happen again. Liza was the most excited. It was the first time she fought against a monster, although she didn't really put much effort into it.